My name is Olivia Hart. I'm 29 years old, and I live in Denver, Colorado. For most of my life, I believed that if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, my father would finally look at me the way he looked at my younger sister, Mia. I was wrong, and it took the biggest day of my life to prove it. 3 years ago, on the day I graduated with my master's degree in structural engineering, my father didn't show up. He wasn't sick. He wasn't stuck in traffic. He was in another city, watching Mia's piano recital, clapping for a performance she gives every single year. I didn't know it then, but that empty seat in the audience was only the beginning. What happened after, the phone call, the papers, the secret my father had been hiding for years, that's a story I still have trouble believing myself. But I had no idea, sitting there in my cap and gown, staring at an empty chair with my mother's hand gripping mine, that in less than 2 years, my father would be sitting across from me, needing something only I could give him. Growing up, our house always felt like it had 2 separate worlds. Mia was 3 years younger than me, bright, musical, easily the center of every room, and I was the quiet one, the one who took apart the toaster to see how it worked, the one who filled notebooks with sketches of bridges and buildings instead of dolls. My father, Richard Hart, ran a small construction and engineering firm he'd built from nothing. When I was a kid, I used to sit in his office after school, watching him spread blueprints across his desk. He'd point at a beam or a support column and explain why it mattered, why one wrong calculation could bring an entire building down. "You've got an engineer's mind, Liv," he told me once. I held on to that sentence for years. It felt like the one thing that made me special to him, but somewhere along the way, that pride quietly faded. And Mia's recitals, her competitions, her spotlight moments, they started taking up more and more of the space in our family that used to belong to both of us. The first time I really noticed it, I was 16. I'd made it into the regional science fair finals, the biggest achievement of my life at that point. The same weekend, Mia had a very important piano recital. My father chose the recital. My mother came to my science fair alone, and she cried when I won first place, because she knew what it meant that he wasn't there. I told myself it was a one-time thing, a scheduling conflict. It happened again at my high school graduation. He showed up late, missed my name being called. Again at my engineering internship award ceremony, he sent a text instead. "So proud of you, sweetheart. Something came up. Something always came up, and it was always Mia." I wish I noticed the signs earlier, not just that he was choosing her, but why. There was a pattern I couldn't see yet, one that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with image. By the time I finished my master's degree, I had stopped expecting much from my father, but some small part of me still hoped that this, the biggest milestone of my life, would be different. It wasn't. The morning of my graduation, I got a text. "Mia's recital got moved up. It's her biggest performance yet. A scholarship judge will be there. I have to go. I'll make it up to you." I sat through the entire ceremony with my mother beside me, watching other families cheer for their kids while my father's seat stayed empty. When they called my name, I looked out at the crowd out of habit, hoping, and then I stopped myself. That's when everything changed. Not with anger, with something quieter and colder, a kind of clarity. I finally admitted to myself what I had always been afraid to say out loud. To my father, I would always come second. I didn't cry that day. I smiled for photos, hugged my mother, celebrated with friends. It wasn't until I got home that night, alone in my apartment, that it all came crashing down. I sat on my kitchen floor with my diploma still in its folder, and I cried in a way I hadn't in years. Not just for the missed graduation, for every recital, every something came up, every quiet moment I had shrunk myself down so there'd be room for Mia to shine. I called my mother. She was quiet for a long time before she finally said something that stayed with me. "Your father built that company for you, Liv. I don't think even he remembers that anymore." I didn't understand what she meant. Not yet. But I would, soon enough, in a way that would change everything between my father and me. Almost 2 years passed. I built my own career, working my way up at a structural engineering firm across the city, deliberately keeping my distance from my father's business. Then, one Tuesday evening, he called me for the first time in months. His voice sounded different, tired, smaller than I remembered. "Liv," he said, "I need to talk to you. It's about the company." I met him at his office the next day. The blueprints were gone from his desk. In their place were stacks of legal documents, bank statements, a folder marked Urgent Liability Review. That's when he told me the truth. 2 years earlier, around the same time as my graduation, his company had taken on a major project that went catastrophically wrong. A structural miscalculation, lawsuits, insurance disputes. He had been quietly drowning in it ever since, hiding it from everyone, including Mia, including my mother. And here was the twist I never saw coming. The only person qualified to review and certify the corrected engineering plans, the only signature that could save the company from losing its license entirely, was mine. My father needed me, not Mia, me. For a moment, I felt something ugly and satisfying rise up in my chest. After everything, every empty chair, every missed moment, now he needed my name on a piece of paper to save what was left of his life's work. I didn't say yes right away. I told him I needed time. That night, I thought about walking away completely, letting the company collapse the way our relationship had. But somewhere underneath the anger, I realized I didn't want revenge built on destruction. I wanted him to finally understand what he had done and what my work, my mind, my presence had actually been worth all along. So I made a decision. I would help him, but not quietly, and not for free, not in money, but in truth. Over the next 3 weeks, I reviewed every flawed calculation in that failed project myself. I found not just one error, but a pattern. The same corners had been cut for years. On smaller projects nobody had noticed. My father hadn't just made one mistake. He had been avoiding a reckoning for a long time. I prepared my corrected plans carefully, methodically, the way he taught me to, all those years ago in his office. But I also prepared something else, a full written report, addressed to the board of the firm, our family's small circle of investors, and yes, my father himself, laying out exactly how close the company had come to collapse and exactly whose expertise had saved it. I scheduled a meeting. I invited my mother. I invited Mia. I wanted everyone to be in the room this time. The meeting took place in the same conference room where I used to sit as a kid, watching my father explain blueprints. This time, I was the one standing at the head of the table. I walked the board through the corrected engineering plans, my signature at the bottom of every page. Then I read the report aloud, not to humiliate my father, but so no one in that room could pretend anymore that this success had come from anywhere but the daughter he had spent years overlooking. I watched Mia's face change as she realized, maybe for the first time, how much I had carried quietly while she stood in the spotlight. I watched my father's face too, not angry, not defensive, just quiet, ashamed. "She's the reason this company still exists," I said. "I think it's time everyone in this family knew that." The company survived. My father kept his business, but not without real changes, an independent review process, new accountability standards, and my name, for the first time, listed as a formal consultant on every future project. At home, something shifted too. My father started showing up. Small things at first, a birthday dinner, a phone call just to talk, no request attached. It wasn't an instant transformation. Years of feeling second best don't disappear in a single conversation. But for the first time in my life, I stopped waiting for an empty chair to fill itself. I had already proven, on paper and in that room, exactly who I was, with or without his applause. Looking back now, I don't think my father ever stopped loving me. I think he simply mistook attention for love and gave it to whoever seemed to need it loudest. Mia's recitals were easy to show up for. My quiet, steady kind of work never asked to be noticed, so for years, it wasn't. What happened next still shocks me sometimes. Not the collapse of his company, but how close I came to walking away from saving it, just to make him feel what I had felt for years. I'm glad I chose the harder path instead, to show him the truth rather than just make him hurt. If you've ever felt like the quiet achiever in a family that only cheers for the loudest voice in the room, I want you to hear this. Your work doesn't need an audience to be worth something. Sometimes the people who matter most only learn to see you when you finally, calmly, show them exactly what they almost lost.